Good evening, and welcome to Hello, It's Us, Perspectives on Inclusion. This program is dedicated to educating the general public about issues which are important to people with disabilities. We hope that you as an audience will recognize that these same issues are important to the general public, since people with disabilities are a critical part of the general public. Hello, It's Us is brought to you through a collaboration between the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development, Uptown Bill's Coffee Shop, and our good friends here at Public Access Television. My name is Mike Connick, and I will serve as host for this very interesting show. For those of you that have been watching regularly, this is going to be a new role for both of us because generally I'm joined by Keith Ruff as the second co-host, and today he is going to be one of the guests on our show, so you're stuck with me as your host. I'm a program coordinator at the Center for Disabilities and Development and have been doing the show for approximately 3 years with Keith, and for the majority of that time, when Keith introduces himself, he says that he's writing a book, and I've been pestering him for a long time to come on the show as a guest, and he said, let's wait until we get the book to a point where we can talk about it, and that point, happily for all of us, is now. So Keith is, as I mentioned, one of our guests, Mark Nolte, who is president of the Iowa City Area Development Group and has assisted Keith in finishing up the book. So Mark, welcome to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So we'd like to just start out with the two of you introducing yourselves, telling us a little bit about yourselves and your work, and anything else related to disability that you'd like to share before we jump into a discussion of the book. So Mark, we'll let you start.
Sure. So I'm currently with the Iowa City Area Development Group, and we operate a space called Merge that we'll talk about more later. But I've been involved in microenterprise and economic development for a long time. As we were talking, I used to run the Iowa Entrepreneurs with Disabilities program and a national organization called the Abilities Fund with Patty Lind, who is a great advocate in this space, helping individuals with disabilities start businesses. And so we'd go around the country and kind of match up their vocational rehabilitation programs with whatever microenterprise was in that state and teach the two entities how to work together to help people start businesses to either augment or get off any benefits that they were on. And then as we were talking, I decided to get into politics, and that was a interesting period in my life. And then after that led me to the Iowa City Area Development Group, where I've been for the last 12 years. And we're trying to keep this community strong and growing and grow the economy. And one of the ways we do that is by supporting creatives and entrepreneurs. So
that's terrific, and I think that it's great that you're tying in the entrepreneurship locally with a program that you used to work with in the area of disability, so that that disability topic is foremost, or at least one of the topics on your mind that helped you connect with Keith.
Well, I got to know Keith years and years ago before. So I was as a college student here, I was a bartender at the sports column.
Oh.
And one of the managers there, Keith and one of his friends would come in, and this guy would just berate these guys every time. Oh, these guys again, and it took me a minute to figure out. He was just treating me like one of the guys, and I think that was the biggest thing I learned from him is that you want to just be treated like everyone else. You don't want, special treatment. And so this guy would kind of go over the top with his criticism of you and Tim and tease you a little harder than most. But I think he was trying to make up for all the people that. And so I got to know Keith a long time ago, and then our paths crossed. A
couple years ago.
A couple years ago, we had coffee, and he was telling me about the book, and so.
Yeah.
And he said, I like to look at it.
Yeah.
I love those kinds of connections.
Yeah. So we've been friends for 20-some years.
I used to go to the sports column, Keith. I learned something new.
It's in the book.
Well, Keith, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll just just kind of keep it short because we'll be talking a lot about yourself,
Okay.
and I don't want to spoil that, but just introduce yourself to.
I arrived in Iowa in August '82, and I went into grad school, and that's when I met you, Mike.
Yeah, I remember it well.
And we were in the same program together. And then I believe disabled people should get involved in all facets of the community. So I was on a number of committees related to the city and related to disability in general.
Yeah, in fact, I remember working with you after, it was interesting because Mark, just like you have a story with Keith, I do too. And so after grad school, we both ended up working at a Center for Independent Living.
Yes.
And we were co-directors of a personal assistance grant. And then I think you got involved with the Systems Change Network.
Yes.
And then you were the president of the DD Council, and I would travel to Des Moines with you all. So we had lots of connections over the years.
Yes.
And
And we've grown to know each other quite well.
absolutely. And it's been really an honor to work with you we just passed, I think, our 3-year anniversary with Hello, It's Us, which really seems hard to believe. So, all right, so let's jump into the book, and I hope that some of these initial questions are focused on Keith a bit, but Mark, I hope you'll just jump on in.
Sure.
Both of you. So Keith, let's just get one of the basics out of the way. And tell us the name of the book.
Wheeling through the years.
Wheeling Through the Years.
And that comes from the documentary I made back in the early 2000s. But that was only about 10 years in Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah, the book starts from birth, and yeah.
Cool. So, they always ask, well, what do you like best, the book or the movie? I think we go for the book, right?
I think so, because it covers from day one up to now.
Cool. So you've talked a little bit about this already, I think, but so you two knew each other for a long time, and then you had coffee and Mark looked at the book, but is that what led to your sort of forming this partnership with Merge?
Yes, because I was doing dead end with the person helping me write the book.
Okay.
So Mark generously gave his son to me as a helper.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
The holdup at the time was just we needed someone who could sit at a keyboard and transcribe as Keith told his story. The book was probably
done.
Well, it was probably it was halfway done or 3/4.
Yeah, 3/4.
Yeah. So we got the manuscript in the form it was at, and I had a son in high school that had free time, so they'd meet at Merge once or twice a week, and they'd go as long as Keith wanted to go, and he'd type, and then from there, once we got it kind of all in and stuff, then we worked with the Iowa Writers House to do the editing and kind of clean up the manuscript, and we had a whole bunch of volunteers in the community kind of read through it to make sure it made sense and it was in the right chronological order.
Wow.
And so we got it kind of to the point where it is today, which is ready to go.
So this is a group effort to complete the book.
Yep.
Did you, when Mark's son typed, was it basically you just sitting down and sort of giving narrative and then?
Yes.
Okay.
I gave narrative to Mary Ann all the time, and then Mark's son.
Cool. And I know that I was fortunate enough to be interviewed for your book. So for some of the people that were in your life, that we provided some information, did that just get scripted in too, or was it more of a just kind of background information?
No, it wasn't scripted in.
Okay, so maybe I got to be quoted in the book somewhere.
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
It's, you know, it's the bulk of the book is Keith's life story, but then the latter part is kind of his views on disability policy and where we're going, and
Yeah, where we were, where we are, and where we're going.
So that's great, and we'll talk, I think, a little bit more about topics too as we go. But I'd like to know, and I think our audience would like to know, what gave you the idea to do this, and why did you do it?
Well, the movie was such a success that many people came up to me afterward and said, you should write a book covering your whole life.
So the movie version was good too. Where did you show that?
That was immediately shown at Independent Living when we were at college.
Oh, okay. Right.
so what year would that have been?
2003 or 4.
One of the things you shared with me before that we sat down to film is that part of what drove you to do this too was as educating people about what people with disabilities are capable of doing.
Yeah.
I'd like to have you talk about that a little bit.
Okay. I didn't do it just to grandize myself. I wanted to educate the general public that today's persons with disabilities are very capable of doing what anyone else does, including making mistakes.
Good. So you felt like that you could share that message by telling the story of your life.
Yes,
Right.
and I didn't pull any punches. You can.
This is true.
Yeah.
There's parts that are really hard to read, you know, some really tough times that you went through.
Yes.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. So, and I'd like to have both of you weigh in on this. In general, and of course there are exceptions to this, but it does seem like in the media people with disabilities are portrayed in one of two ways. Either we're superheroes or there's an attempt to tug at other people's heartstrings to pity us. And from what I'm hearing the two of you say, Keith, you've really attempted to just not to go either of those directions, but to present much more of a realistic view of what it's like to grow up and to have a disability. Is that accurate?
Yes. I believe in the ADA and involvement in all aspects of life, which includes more than living a life with a disability.
More than living a life. So what does that mean?
Well, I balanced it out by doing things in the disability field, but also doing things within the community.
Okay, yeah.
For the whole community.
Yeah, that's great, and I think that balance is what we really do need to strive for, and I'm guessing that's also reflected in your book, right?
Yes,
Okay. Well, let's, you referenced earlier that, you know, you had a period of time where things kind of stalled out. So what were some of the ups and downs that you experienced along the way in writing this book?
Well, the person that was helping had a lot of family responsibilities. And on top of that, she had 5 kids.
Wow.
Ranging from the age of 3 to 11. So we didn't always get together every week. With Mark's son, we could get together every week, and he would just work with me until I ran out of work.
You ran out of things to say for
Yes,
me?
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it worked out his schedule. He was a senior at West High, and he had some open windows in the afternoon, so they'd meet at Merge and open the laptop and just get to work, and so it was a good partnership.
Yeah.
And it really helped him understand. He got to know and grew so much respect for Keith for his positivity and the way he could tell his story, and so as a parent, that's what you want.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You want your children to, because to your point about the media, you're right? There's this concept that somehow individuals with disability are different, and we're all differently able. We all have good days and bad days.
Exactly.
But you're right, the media does it, somehow distorts that, and it makes it seem like it's and clearly he's hard to work with, as you know.
Yeah, scared one off. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, and I think a project like this always has its residual benefits that maybe you hadn't expected. I mean, the fact that you were able to work, Keith, one-on-one with a young person that had an interest, I think that's great. That's probably, I don't want to overstate it, but I'm guessing that may be a life-changing event for your son.
I think the life-changing event for me, because I was seriously thinking, Mark and Mike, of taking this in schools, in classes, and discussing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it will be a good book to take to middle school and up. I think it'll be. It's not so long that the way you've written it, the way you've told your story it's quick. You don't. So it's a good read, and I think it does. It opens a lot of people's eyes. So I could see this being very useful in a school setting.
Yeah, and that's where we need to get people.
Yeah.
I think that we've seen over the years certainly a greater shift toward inclusion, but I think we were just talking yesterday at a training that I did about how it happened to be for medical students, and some of them were really hesitant to ask one of our participants some questions, and he happens to have a pretty visible disability that maybe people aren't familiar, aren't comfortable with, and they really struggled. And some of them shared with us that they really haven't had a lot of exposure to people with disabilities, even though we are making progress in the field of inclusion. So I think Keith, if you could do that, that would be really great.
Because sometimes I feel like people who first meet me, they look at the chair. They're not looking at the individual in the chair.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not looking behind my growth movements.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I've heard, I've been on a bus before where they say, well, we've got a wheelchair at whatever street. And it's like, I often wanted to say, well, is there somebody in the wheelchair? Or did they just have a wheelchair? So how long, I know that we've been talking about this book project for 3 years since we started doing Hello It's Us. So how long has this been in process?
I think that independent living
Oh, wow.
was moved on
Oh, since they moved.
college.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how long that was, but
I forget.
since they moved off of college onto to here, or,
No, I mean college.
yeah, that's, I know.
They used to be here.
Oh, and then they moved from here to college,
Yes,
and now they're out in the boonies.
yes.
Wow, that has been a while since it's
Yeah.
been here, so.
And it gave me time to look at myself and see what I wanted to tell. And then when I got to the point where I told most anything, I asked Mark and the advisors from the budget, should I do where we are, where we're going, where we were.
Yep.
And it was agreed upon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the theme, kind of the themes?
Yes,
Okay.
my opinion of where we were, where we are, where we're going as a minority.
Well, that's great. You know, I know that when we do these shows, oftentimes that's one of the questions that you ask people. So I think that sounds like that's a really important piece for you.
Yes.
So, again, you've mentioned, we've alluded to this a little bit, but I'd love to hear you talk about, both of you actually, and we'll start with you, Keith, but what it takes to write a book. I mean, you don't just, I have actually had some idea of wanting to do this myself at some point, probably as a retirement project like you've done. But, and I could sit down and, I could probably write out things about myself, but, I don't know how interesting they would be to people. I mean, there's obviously, you have to put a lot of thought into it in order for it to be appealing to an audience. So what are some of the things that you think that you would give advice to for people that, what did it take, what were some of the qualities that it took for you to stick through it and get this done?
Well, first, they need a lot of patience. And they need a lot of feedback from people. Because Mark each day would give me feedback. I'm like he read when it's done, typed it up, and I help.
Good.
But you gotta be very patient. If you hit a dead end one day, put the pencil down or the computer and just walk away or ride on.
Yeah.
That had to be one of the hardest things, because I know I'm kind of a deadline-driven person. And so there are times even in my work life where I will force myself. I did that last night, as a matter of fact. I needed to get a support letter out to somebody, and I just had no creative juice. But I knew that I had to get this done, and I slogged through it, but it was not a pleasant experience. And so I know, Keith, that this has been something on your mind to get done. So was that hard for you sometimes when the ideas stopped to just walk away from it?
Yeah, and the hardest part was getting appointments that were cut off. Like I would meet Marianne once in a while, and then she would call and say, I have a sick child. And that made me a little more anxious to get things done.
Yeah, well, I can understand that, because it's something you want to get the word out, and you've got a story to tell. So Mark, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, you know,
Thoughts there?
I've picked up a lot. Yeah, we live in the city of literature, and there are writers all over, and having people like Andrea and Alex at the Writers House, you know, the common themes you hear about is write it for yourself, whether you're writing music or poetry or a book. Write it. You know, I think that's a hang up people get caught in, like because your point, like trying to write for someone else, you can't. You know, you're making a lot of assumptions. Write it like the way you'd want it. Write for yourself as the audience. I think the more I've listened to the good writers and even songwriters and stuff, that seems to be a common theme. Like I wrote a song that I wanted to hear, and turns out other people wanted to hear it. Or I wrote this book. And they all say the same thing too. It's frequency. You just got to do it. You know, some days, you know, get a paragraph out every day, and some days if you can go longer. But so building that kind of practice, and then get help. You know, that was the one thing when we first started looking at kind of where we picked it up with Keith. That, you know, things would pop into his head that weren't in linear order. Right, but they were important to the story. And that's where the good editors came in and said, oh, we got to take this chunk and move it up here, and this has to go here, and this part might be a little repetitive, so we got to take some stuff out. But because if you just sit down and try to do it all, I mean, a life is a long time to get in order. But, you know, Keith would just...
Keith.
Yeah, he's so old. But yeah, and so get help, right? There are good people who are good at editing and good at especially in this town, right? We've got the City of Literature and the Writers House. You couldn't pick a better community to want to do a project like this. So
that's awesome, and I did not know some of those resources existed. Do they? Is that something that they do gratis, or do they? Does it just depend on the situation?
Depends on the situation. We've been very fortunate that the Writers House has helped with the editing gratis on this project, helped us figure out how to get it published, you know, so they knew which website to use to upload the document so that they can do, so this will be a print on demand or you can read it online.
Great.
So yeah.
Well, as always is the case, this half hour flies by, and we're at the end of part one of this two-part mini-series on Keith and Wheelin in the Years. So I'd like to thank both of you for coming and talking about it. We'll look forward to picking up the conversation next week.
Thank you.